Today on Dirtnation Off-Road, we're heading out on an epic rock crawling trip. Before that, we have to get this truck packed and ready to go. So what we're going to be talking about today is the key items that you need to bring if you are going out on an extended rock crawling trip. Let's get started. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dirtnation Off-Road. So today what we're going to be doing is an instruction type video. We're going to be doing some information today. And what I am looking for in this video is to answer the question. If I am going out on a extended rock crawling trip, what are the items that I am going to need to survive, honestly, because hey, rock crawling is a difficult hobby, right? There is a lot that goes into it. There is a lot of, risk and challenges and things that break, and we're going to talk about a lot of that in this video. So there is a lot of equipment and a lot of things that you got to bring and make sure that you have just to be on the safe side, be prepared, all that fun stuff. So in this video, we're going to be doing that because we are getting ready for a week-long trip to Fordyce and the Rubicon. Now, both of these trails are on the extreme side of rock crawling. Not only are they like very difficult trails, but they are very long trails, and they typically take multiple days in order to complete. Now, this truck right here is our 1988 Toyota pickup Winchers. Now, this truck we've had for a couple years. We've been using it, abusing it, all that fun stuff. We've already done the Rubicon in this truck. Took us 3 days. We're living out of it, using it. We ended up having problems with it, and we'll talk about some of that stuff. But for this trip that we have coming up, I'm going to be using this truck. So we have a whole week that we gotta pretty much live out of this thing, doing 2 of some of the hardest trails that you'll find in the US. And yeah, we're going to talk about some things. First things first, I want to talk about some of the upgrades that we've made to Winchers because, last year when we did the trip, it was kind of like a shakedown run for the truck on 40s, and we did a manual swap and doublers and a bunch of other things. The truck really wasn't ready, although it did just fine. We had some issues related to the steering box, getting ripped off the frame and all that, but besides the point, let's talk about some of the recent upgrades that we did. Now, first things first, if you guys are familiar with the truck, obvious one right here is we put a winch on Winchers. So this is the old Super Winch Talon 12.5 synthetic rope that we used to have on the Tacoma. Now we're putting it on Winchers. This is a great old school military style winch. It is super strong, it is super fast. This does not take up a lot of space, and it is on there very nice and tight. Now I gotta give a big shout out to JM Fab Garage. They're the ones that made this winch plate as well as our rear recovery system. Same guy that did our 63 swap. He made our rear bumper, he made our front bumper on the Tacoma. You guys can find him right here, look at it. There it is, JM Fab Garage on Instagram. He does a lot of stuff with Tacomas, and he's starting to dive into other vehicles as well. Second thing was addressing a big problem. You run 40-inch tires, you're going to need to steer them. The stock steering system on most vehicles, actually, let alone Toyotas, cannot handle a 40-inch tire. So that's where Hydro Assist comes in. So normally you'd have a steering box that, hey, you put input to steering and it steers, your tires back and forth. When you put big tires, you start running into some issues. Now, the issues that I ran into last year on the Rubicon was I have the reinforcement already onto the frame, but this was before I had just the stock plate or, the stock like mounting system. And I kept ripping, stretching bolts and loosening bolts, and I pretty much ripped the steering box off the frame like 3 times throughout the trail to where we'd have to keep putting it on, welding stuff on, and it honestly sucked. But we're getting that taken care of. After that trip, I ended up putting on the steering reinforcement, but the truck was still hard to steer when we're driving it. We've now put what you call Hydro Assist. So Hydro Assist adds these 2 lines right here, which go down to this right down here. So you can see that is welded onto the axle. This is welded onto the steering. So that pumps fluid to that right there, which will help the steering box turn the tires by pushing the tires back and forth on whatever input that you do. So Hydro Assist is super helpful. I've already driven it around. The truck drives nice. It steers nice. Doesn't even feel like I have 40-inch tires anymore. Now, backtracking a little bit, the reason I had to put Hydro Assist, besides the fact that it's hard to steer 40s when you're rock crawling, I ended up changing the locker situation in the front of my truck. Now, I used to have an ARB air locker, which worked very well for a long time. Then I started to really run into some issues with it. Now, let me show you what the locker looks like now. Now, what ended up pretty much happening was, because my front drive shaft is a square tube drive shaft, you guys can see it right there, it vibrates. And when it vibrates the pinion and things, hey, they're gonna come loose. So what ended up happening was, in this locker, things started to come loose and it would shake back and forth. Ended up breaking the copper line, which normally air would come in, it would be inputted right here, it would lock up the differential, and then you have a locker, right? What ended up happening was the air line broke. I ran the truck without a locker for a little bit. Then I replaced the line, and as I was putting it together, I broke the fitting that goes on the differential. So I broke this fitting, and then after I replaced this fitting, I went and put it all back together, and the copper line broke again. And then once I realized I broke the copper line, I was like, hey, I am fucking done with this differential, and I'm gonna go with a different style locker. Which brings me to what we did in the front. So we ended up putting a Power Tracks lunchbox style locker. So if you guys are familiar with like Detroit lockers, Spartan lockers, it's the same type of deal. It's the kind where when there's pressure or when there's any kind of like force going into it, it'll lock up. But if you're driving on the street, you'll hear it ratchet and click as it, you know, disengages. So that's what we ended up putting up front, so that we have a full-time locker and we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And then with the hydro assist, now we can turn these big tires and it's locked all the time. The rear is always locked all the time because I have a spool or it's welded gears. So all looking good so far. Now finally, what we ended up doing in the rear right here is we didn't go with the full bumper because eventually I'm going to cage the truck and we'll tie it into what we made right here. But JM Fab Garage ended up just putting a hitch system on here. Pretty much used the existing frame, tied it in right there, put gussets, and all of that stuff, and then put this down here, and this is gusseted all to high hell, to where now I have a solid recovery system in the rear. Anybody needs recovering or I need recovering, we're good to go back there. Now with all that, that pretty much updates us on the current build on the truck. Still got to do a cage on it, we still got to do a couple other things, but the truck is doing really good. It steers good, drives good, and I'm really enjoying it as is. Now, after all that, let's jump into equipment, gear, tools, parts, fluids, all of that stuff. We have to pack this truck up with a ton of gear. And as I pack it up today, I'm going to be going over pretty much all of the stuff that I'm going to be putting in the truck, because a lot of this right here is going to go in there. I have stuff inside my house that also has to go in there, and we're going to be talking about all of it. Now, if you haven't gotten the hint already, the first item up is going to be tools. Now, when it comes to what kind of tools do I bring on a long rock crawling trip, there's no real easy answer to that, because every vehicle is different, every person is different, every, you know, person's level of difficulty or knowledge when it comes to wrenching in vehicles and dealing with problems, it's all different. What I will tell you is, you know, assuming that you guys are going on a trip like this, you've probably already wheeled before, you've maybe dealt with some issues or see people deal with issues, so you'll probably have a good understanding that at a baseline, even just going out on day trips and going out wheeling, you should carry basic tools, sockets, wrenches, you know, maybe some of the tools that are specific to your vehicle or sizes that are specific to your vehicle. That is something that at a baseline, everybody should carry, right? Screwdrivers, pry bars, impacts, all of that stuff. Now, I'm not going to really cover all of that stuff. You'll see some of it behind me back here. What I'll talk about is some things that I make sure that I have to have on extended long trips where I know something's going to break, something's going to happen. So I have a lot right here. I actually just picked up a couple new toolboxes just for this trip, so I have to organize some stuff. But let's talk about some of the important ones. First things first, the one that I'm going to say I never leave the house without is the portable welder. Now, the portable welder that I run is the Carnage welder. This thing is terrific. Now, I am going to make a whole video on this welder. I've had mine for about 6 months now, and I've definitely used it a lot for at-home projects. I've used it on the trail. It is a pretty cool welder. Just looking at it real quick, showing you some of the basics. It is a battery powered welder that only takes, you know, it has about 20 to 25 minutes of welding, but it is a flux weld. It's as simple as, right, you got your ground and then you got your wand, okay, then you can turn it on and do all that stuff. it is super duper easy to use. What I carry alongside this welder is I obviously carry some snippets, you know, some cutters so I can cut the end. I carry some extra tips. I carry extra welding wire. I carry a welding mask, which is a pretty small one. Let me show you the one that I have. So in my welding box, I have the welding mask, which is right here. This is a small one. You get this directly from Carnage. So I got that one from them. I have Carnage's welding gloves. And then from them, I also have the battery cable system, so that because this thing requires 24 volts, you're gonna have to hook it up to 2 car batteries if for some reason, which is what happened to us last year, if you have an issue where you run out of battery on the actual welder and you don't charge it in time by the time you need it next, you have this right here, which has jumper cables to hook it up to 2 different batteries, so you can just run it off those 2 batteries. Welder is super duper important for a trip like this, especially you're bringing rock crawlers, you're bringing vehicles that they're gonna twist their frames and twist parts off. You know, even if you don't have fabrication skills, I have 0 fabrication skills. I know how to use this welder. I understand the basics of welding. It's like a hot glue gun for metal. That's the way I look at it. And most of the time you're not going to have pretty welds with this, but it will get you off the trail. Next thing is going to be power tools. Now, anybody that goes out on any off-road trail, I recommend them carrying an impact. These are super important, right? You can take off wheels with them. You can blow off big bolts. You can do a lot of stuff, you know, with an impact. It just makes things a lot easier. You know, obviously hand tools are useful, but when you're on a trail like this and it's run and gun, you're trying to get through it, you know, you're breaking stuff and you're trying to fix stuff before dark, these are going to be super useful. Other thing I'll mention is I bring a drill with me because you can do, you know, obviously I'm not going to do much drilling, but I use this for, let's say I'll put the wire wheel on the end of it so I can like clean up stuff, because if you're going to do any welding, you want to have a clean surface so you can weld on it. Electric ratchets, this thing is nice. Not mandatory, but it's something that I bring. One thing for a trip like this that is super duper important is a cordless grinder. So I actually just picked this up specifically for this trip because in doing some research, I don't think any of the people going with us brought one. This ended up being super useful last year when we were out on the Rubicon, so I made sure to have one of these. Now I have the Milwaukee one, which is a little bit more expensive, but you can get cheaper ones that, you know, are a little bit more affordable. They're going to work just fine. Along with my tools, I have now this one is a very important box that I carry with me at all times, but I make sure is particularly packed when I'm going out on a trip like this. Is I have a toolbox with a bunch of different little bins in here, and I carry a bunch of different stuff. I carry stuff, you know, related to electronics, such as butt connectors. I'll carry fuses. I'll carry, you know, switches and wires. I also carry, you know, little fuse things, you know, in case we need to fuse something real quick, if anybody's having electrical issues. I also carry, these ones are super important too, especially if you're doing trail fixes, right? I carry gasket maker, so I have a couple new ones that I'm going to throw in here, and then steel stick JB weld. This stuff is super useful as well. And then on the other side right here, let's see what else we have. We have body clips, we have freaking, you know, cotter pins, freaking random, you know, stuff. Like I said, electrical wiring, you know, just little, honestly, like when I take apart an old, you know, let's say I take a set of lights off of one of my trucks that I don't use anymore, I might keep the connectors or keep something just in case you have to fabricate something or you have to make something on the trail, on the go. It's super useful to have. Safety glasses, especially if we're going to be doing all this welding and cutting and everything. I also have on this side a bunch of different hardware. Most of my trucks are metric, so they have a lot of, you know, 10s, 12s, 14s, 19s, 17s, all of that stuff. So I have a bunch of nuts, bolts, washers. Same here, nuts, bolts, washers. I make sure to carry generic ones, as well as I carry specific ones for things that I know on this truck. So for example, I know I carry at least 1 or 2 of them for the steering. Now most vehicles have ball joints. I don't have ball joints up front. I have Heims. So my Heims are actually inside. I'm going to pack those, but I carry Heims because those are my tie rod ends or my ball joints. So I make sure to carry 1 left and 1 right. And then I carry the hardware that will go through those in case something like that breaks. You know, I have self tappers in here. I have barrels. You know, I have nut and bolt combos. So like this one would be like for a shock mount. I carry extra ones For the steering box, I carry extra ones for the drive shaft. So like this is a factory drive shaft bolt. So I make sure I carry, you know, a couple of these on hand just in case. You know, I have other stuff in here. Like I said, more hardware, more stuff that I might need. I have hose clamps. I have a bunch of other stuff. You know, I carry bigger bolts, right? Just in case somebody else breaks something. Bigger bolts, bigger nuts, bigger washers. I make sure I carry complete ones just in case you need something, you know, complete ones that are longer. I carry extra spare metal just in case you have to weld something, you have to put something together. You guys are getting the idea, right? Hey, you never know when you're going to need this stuff. So that's good right there. I also usually carry inside this box, I think it's over here. Oh, there it is right here. So I usually carry, you know, a crimp thing in there. And then, oh yeah, there's my gasket maker. So that's my new gasket maker. Throw that in there. So that's all good. This one, bam. So that's good to go. And then these all stack up. And then I have just a variety of different other like toolboxes and bags. You know, this one, you know, it's a bigger one where I carry breaker bars, you know, big pry bars, freaking, you know, I always carry one regular, you know, one like smacking hammer, and then one like less smacking hammer. And then, you know, I carry sockets and wrenches and all of that stuff. And I pretty much carry a lot of my tools. Like I said, you guys don't necessarily have to carry that much stuff, but you should know what your vehicle is going to need and then carry probably a little bit extra beyond that. Duct tape. Always carry duct tape. Necessities, 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 necessities. You out there with Tacomas, I carry a lot of tie rods. I don't need to take these on this trip. Okay, next is going to be specific to the vehicle that you have, but you guys can maybe get a baseline on the stuff that I'm talking about. I am talking about spare parts. Now, spare parts we already talked about a little bit. Hardware is super important for spare parts. You have no idea. Make sure you carry some, you know, extra hardware for those situations. Spare parts. Number one spare part, zip ties. Bring a lot of them. So I have a bunch of different varieties of different sizes. I have thicker ones, I have smaller ones, yada, yada, yada. Back to the wiring stuff, I have some, you know, a roll of wiring just in case we need to wire anything up. Then every single time I change the brakes or anything on the, you know, the Tacoma or Winchers, because they're both Toyotas, they take similar brake lines. So I have some brake lines right here that I carry just in case a brake line breaks, and we're able to maybe swap it, maybe, you know, do our thing. Because the other thing to keep in mind is with brake lines, some of them are, you know, male to male, some of them are female to male, some of them are female to female. I carry, you know, some variety. This one's male to female. This one's male to male. I think this big one is also male to male. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it for those. I only have one of these right now, but I have an extra U-joint that I make sure I always carry as well. Extra pitman arm. So this is the steering arm that goes on the steering box, just in case mine breaks. This is a radiator hose. I don't know exactly what this, I think this might be an upper. I don't remember, but I carry it just in case. You know, we can always cut it up. We can always do something with it. And then I do carry, I have one piece right here, and then I have the second piece right here. This is a radiator hose repair kit. So this comes with 3 pieces. I've already used one of the pieces on the front of Winchers because the swap required a weird hose, so I made my own. But this is just plastic pieces. Let's say you have a rip in your hose and you want to repair it. You go ahead and take this right here, and you would cut where it's ripped, stick this in between with clamps, and then now you have a working hose. If you want to know if it works, like I said, I have one on the front of Winchers on the lower radiator hose, and it's been like that since I swapped it. So that's good there. Also with spare parts, I also carry an extra hub. Now the hub, you can carry complete hubs. I choose to carry the housing with hardware, and then I carry 2 hub gears on the inside. On the inside, there's a locking, you know, the locking hub, right? There's a gear on the inside that moves back and forth as you know, select and deselect it or whatever. I carry 2 of those gears because I have chromoly gears in the front along with chromoly shafts. My outer hub gear is now my weak point on my truck. So for me personally, I carry 2 of the hub gears just in case those break, because as expected, I mean, it's not expected that I'm gonna break those other parts. I might, but you know, it is what it is. I also carry, let's see what else. We got some more parts right here that we're gonna add. This stuff hasn't been in the bin in a while, but this is all important stuff. I don't know why this is in here, but suntan lotion, super important. I don't know why this is in here, but my Dremel, radiator cap, spare metal, leaf spring perch, or no, this is the leaf spring plate. This is our U-bolt plate. So U-bolt plate, I carry a couple of those. I carry extra U-bolts. And then I also carry, oh, there's the other part of our repair kit. So we have another part of our repair kit. This is more shackle mounts, just in case we need to replace a shackle. This is, you know, a pretty generic one, but it has spacers, so you can do a couple different things with it. Plus it has hardware. So if one of our leaf spring shackles has an issue, we can replace that. We have 2 of those. That's a Burfield shaft. I carry it just in case, to be honest. I shouldn't break a Burfield, but you never know. I always have a funnel on me, and then this is all just a bunch of U-bolts. Like I said, I carry extra U-bolts. I carry extra flanges. So these, there's a variety of different ones, so I carry them. These are Toyota. These will fit the differentials as well as the transfer case, front and rear. So there's a total of 4 on the truck, so I carry a couple extra just in case there's any issues. Let's say you break a drive shaft, one of these strips out, whatever it might be. It's unlikely that they're going to break, but they're not very big, so I carry extras of those. I have more hose repair kits, Scotch tape. I don't know why that's in there. Probably the 2 most important parts that I have to bring is my 2 flags. I need to bring those. So we have the Dirt Nation flag, and then we have Old Glory. Those will end up going back at some point. Barely digging this out now, but this is going to go with me on the trip. Spare drive shaft. So this is a 100% complete drive shaft. Now this one, you may not be able to tell by looking at it, but the splines on it are bent. This used to be the drive shaft that was on the truck. I bent it on a rock crawling trip. So what I went ahead and did was I had another one made, and I'm gonna keep this one as a spare. So because it's bent, it does vibrate, so you can't drive it on the highway, but if I need to get off a trail, this will work just fine. Next one, it's not super important, but I do carry it, is I do carry extra shocks. Especially I think one of the shocks on my truck is blown in the front, so I do carry at least 2 shocks just to be on the safe side. So that'll get me covered in case I need to change anything. So I carry 1 front and 1 rear just to make sure we're good there. And then I have some other parts that I'm gonna dig out of there right now, probably off camera, but you know, because this is, you know, remote, it's away from home, it's very far away. Granted, I am towing the truck, so I'm not as worried about like catastrophic breaks. As long as I get it back to the trailer, I can get it home. But a couple other things that I'll carry is I'll take a look at some of my engine parts because I have a ton of extra 3.4 parts, so I'll carry some of those. For example, I have some belts over there that I'll carry, some accessory drive stuff, you know, alternator, I'll carry a starter, and then I have a couple other things over there that I'm going to throw in with the bunch, but I keep it all in one box. That way we have, you know, all the spare parts that we need. I say all that to say this: when it comes to spare parts, you need to know what are the weak points on your truck. You want to be able to replace those. And then the easy things that you could carry to just, you know, hey, take care of yourself, right? Hub gears, small axle shafts, leaf spring parts, U-bolts, you know, just generic little stuff that may not take up that much space and might be able to get you out of something hairy if, you know, you have an issue, something breaks, yada, yada, yada. Now, quick side note, you can see, so fluids, I don't know if I talked about fluids, but let's pop over here real quick. Can you guys see me? I'm sure you can. I have motor oil, coolant, gear oil, power steering, and I think I need to I'll grab a brake fluid and throw it in there. I have that all in the crate. And then everything else we've talked about, the welder, tools, spare parts, and then drive shaft and all that stuff is now packed, which brings me to the next item, which I'm gonna pack along with that stuff. Shop towels, super important. So I always carry shop towels with me, and then a bag of ratchet straps, because trips like these, now I have an issue with strapping stuff down. That is for sure, you watch any of our videos and I like to rattle stuff around. On an extended rock crawling trip, you want to make sure that you are actually strapping stuff down. So I do carry these with me. I'm going to strap all of this down right here so it's solid, ready to go. And then we'll continue packing the truck. We're running out of space already, but we'll see how it goes. All right, up next is your off-road equipment that, you know, hey, most of us are going to carry like recovery gear, air up stuff, air down stuff, all of that. So I have my quad air hoses. I'm gonna carry these with me, probably in the tow pick. I'm not gonna carry these on the trail, but what I will carry on the trail is our Morflate air compressor, because you never know, if you DB'd, somebody needs to air up, if they air down too much, whatever it might be, there's always a good reason to carry a good strong air compressor. Next is our recovery gear. Now, one that I'll have kind of lying around loose is my kinetic rope. So kinetic rope, you know, is always good for yanking, pulling. You know, it's a good way to yank somebody while lessening the risk of damaging that vehicle, because the rope is kinetic, right? It has stretch to it. So when you yank, it's not a hard tug. It's usually using like momentum and whatever the hell it may be. But I'm gonna have that one just out and about, hooked up to the back of the truck. And then I do have my recovery bag right here. Now inside the truck, I have one soft shackle. Now soft shackles, I actually picked up some new ones. Shout out to Rhino USA. I picked those up on Amazon. But this is what a soft shackle is. It pretty much is like a D-ring, except it's made of synthetic rope. These are super strong, super useful. And what's really cool about these, as opposed to a D-ring, first D-ring creates kinetic energy. So if they fail, all of that steel is going somewhere and it's going to hurt something. These, because they're made of rope, a lot less kinetic energy when they fling, or if they fail, they're not going to really hurt anything. But I have two of those from Rhino USA, and then I have my regular one inside the truck, and then I am missing another one. I don't know what happened to it. I have a short strap. So this is a tree saver strap. So this one is usually only about like 6 feet. I don't know. It's, yeah, probably I think 6 feet, something like that, 6 or 8 feet. This is to wrap around trees or rocks when you're winching, just to protect those trees, not so much the rocks. And then I have a regular strap, which is just good to have in general. I have a winch weigh down, which you put these on there. This is mostly for steel cable winches, but it'll be good for synthetic, you know, whatever you need. So when you're winching, you put this over the line so that it'll put the weight going down. So if it fails, you know, the energy will go more down rather than side to side and hit somebody. Let's see. I'm missing a lot of D-rings, but that's fine. I don't really use these that much, but I do carry D-rings with me. And then lastly is our snatch block. So this is the heavy duty snatch block. What you do with these is, if your winch is failing or it's not pulling, or you need to give it a little bit more leverage, more power, what you can do is you will you will loop your winch cable through this wheel right here, and then loop it back to your vehicle, tying it up. And then you will put a D-ring or a soft shackle through here to the item or vehicle that you're winching. And then what that'll happen is, because you're looping it back, you are doubling the power of your winch, thus, you know, making it a lot easier for you to make your recovery. Pretty basic stuff that I carry in my recovery gear. Gonna pack all this up, throw that up there, and then we'll move on. All right, real quick. We did not end up finishing recording the video before our trip. It got a little late on us. I didn't want to record in the dark. I wanted you guys to see everything and be able to, you know, be given the time to thoroughly talk about everything. So here we are sitting after our Fordyce and Rubicon trip. No spoilers on those videos. You have to see them when they come out very, very soon. But in the meantime, let's finish up with our list of items, the things that we're taking on this trip, and make sure we're all covered. Let's get started. All right, next is going to be a lot of electronic related stuff, but it's going to be important for what you're doing on these trips. First things first, a radio. Now, there's a bunch of different styles of radios that you go with. I believe this is a ham radio or VHF or whatever the hell you call it. To be honest, I don't know a lot about these radios. I know how, with these Baofangs, I know how to set them, tune them, and, you know, put them on the frequency that you need. So important thing to know would be, what are the radios that your group is using, or just maybe having one in general, because most of the time you'll be able to communicate with somebody if you're out on the trail and, you know, something goes wrong. So we usually have radios like this. I also have a hardwired one inside of this truck, as well as one of my other trucks, but I always have one of these just in case if we, let's say you go out into the woods to go to the bathroom or something happens, it's always good to have a radio on hand. Next will be vehicle specific, but most vehicles are going to use the same type of one, but an OBD2 scanner. If you have an older vehicle, you could use an OBD1 scanner, but I always carry this one with me. And then I actually have a new one that I'm working on a review that I've been taking out with me quite a bit. Now this one's from Ansel, and this one is like super powered up and got a bunch of cool stuff going on. It's actually powered by an Android tablet, which is really nice. I have used it a couple times, just not on my vehicles, but I've been using it on other vehicles, mainly white Tacomas for some reason. But either way, always good to have a scanner. You don't need to have a super fancy one. You know, you could pick up one of these cheaper ones. These are about 50, 60 bucks at auto parts stores. These are going to be good. I would recommend that you get one that scans engine codes as well as ABS codes, because those of us in the off-road world, if you drive a Tacoma, a Jeep, any of the newer vehicles, most of the time, if they get any kind of codes, they're probably going to get some kind of traction control or ABS or, you know, tilt sensor when you mess up your alignment and stuff. All of that is going to need something that's going to, you know, be able to scan ABS codes. So keep that in mind. Make sure whatever scanner you get can scan ABS stuff. You'll be solid. Next is, this one isn't electronic, but, you know, I group it in with everything because it has a fancy box just like it. And that is a tire plug kit. So I've had this tire plug kit for a long time. You can see right here. I've actually used it plenty of times. I think I've gone through a good amount of plugs, but I still have a bunch left. But the one that I have is from ARB, and this one is pretty simple. You know, you carry this, you know, you have, you can either use a drill, which, you know, we carry a drill with us, or use this to, you know, if you have a puncture, you use the pliers to pull out whatever's punctured, clean out the puncture or the hole, and then you set a plug inside there with some glue, stab it in there, and then your tire should be plugged and ready to go. Now, this is super important to have, especially for someone like me, because I usually don't carry a spare tire. Now, why don't I carry a spare tire? Well, space, to be honest. Trips like these, it's really heavy duty on space, so fitting a 40-inch tire in the back here with all of the other stuff that we're fitting is kind of difficult. So in the meantime, if I'm not carrying a spare tire, I can at least carry this, so that unless it's like a super duper bad gash, I'll be good to go with that. Next is something that, hey, this thing has saved my butt plenty of times. It's also saved the butts of many others on the channel, and that is a portable jump starter. So the portable jump starter that I have, I picked this up from Amazon. This one is from Fantic. I'll show you guys so you guys can see how it looks. It's from Fantic. Those of you, if I've saved your butt with this, comment below. I need the proof. You guys got to back me up here. I'll have to comment below for myself multiple times, because hell, when we were in Bald Mountain and I took the Tacoma on Swamp Lake, after I broke both front axles, broke my steering, and I had like a very hard time turning, I was relying heavily on my winch to a point to where I kept killing my battery, and the only way I would be able to run the truck is if I used the jump starter. So this jump starter is really good. No lie, I think I've jump started a truck about 10 times and still had about 30%. This thing holds a lot of juice. It doesn't take much to jump a car, apparently. I mean, I've seen with other jump packs, they usually, you know, can jump 1 or 2, maybe 3 times. This one I've jumped, like I said, like at least 8, 9, maybe 10 times that I've jumped a vehicle. See, this one's just sitting, chilling there at 100%, ready to go. Next is, it's a heavy one. Portable power stations. So portable power stations, I usually carry 2. This trip I carry 3, and I went for a small, medium, large kind of deal. Now the reason is because one of the items you'll see coming up is my fridge. The fridge I had running the entire time, and because I had it running so long, I needed something that I knew could hold the juice, as well as I'm gonna have enough juice for other stuff. So what ended up happening was I had the fridge connected to this the entire time. For that whole trip, this was at 100% when I started. When I finished the trip, and it was, like I said, all week plugged into this, it used 70% of this one. So this one is from Powerness. We are going to be reviewing it, and this is the Hiker A1500, I want to say, but it's a 1500 milliamp hour or 15,000 or something. It's got a lot. It's 3 times as much as this, and it's like 10 times as much as this in terms of like capacity and power and everything. This thing's terrific. I don't know the specs on it yet. I've been using it, recording footage. I'm going to be reviewing it in the near future. This one I have right here is from Blue Eddy. I have a video on this, and then I made a video on the Jackery, the little one. This one is nice to just charge your phone. That's literally what I use it for. I keep it in the center console. Charges my phone. This one I was using to charge camera equipment, you know, whatever odd end stuff, the drone, blah, 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 because it has enough power to charge that stuff. And it also has high enough capacity to charge multiple items at once, and I don't really have to worry about like killing it too fast. Much like a lot of the stuff that I have, it's a little bit overkill. You don't need to carry 3 power stations. You could get away with 1 big one or a medium-sized one. You can get away with maybe 2. You don't necessarily need 3. But I was running mine off the fridge the entire time, and my 12-volt system doesn't work on the truck, so I couldn't exactly plug it in there. So I made sure that I had this ready to go. And plus I'm reviewing it, so it was good to give it a solid test. In addition, I was also using the, see, like I gave it a couple of rips right there. From Powerness, I was using the solar power station. This one's a 200-watt station, and I was using it to charge this one because I was charging so many camera batteries. This one was like almost always getting the battery depleted, so every time we stopped or we had like a good amount of sunlight, I'd set this one up and charge this, and it did a great job of doing it. Damn, is that too tall? Might be. Let's talk food and how we're gonna keep our food stored. So first things first, I took this actually I took both of these last year. I got my Iceco refrigerator slash freezer, and then my Grizzly ice chest. So most of us will be able to probably get away with just one of these. I carry 2 because I had somebody with me. So if you're feeding 2 people for multiple days, what I ended up doing was I had this specifically for just food. So, you know, milk, eggs, bacon, meats, whatever we're cooking, you know, lunchable snacks, whatever it might be. It all stays inside of this fridge, and this one is going to be plugged in to one of our power stations at all times so that it's ready to go. And what's really cool about it is that it does have this insulation bag right here. So this insulation bag keeps everything nice and cool, even if it's sitting in the hot sun all day. So this thing actually works pretty good. It pulls about, I want to say 48 watt hours when it's, you know, when the compressor's on. Otherwise it doesn't pull anything. So most of the time, well, I'd say about half of the time it's using, you know, the power station, the other half it isn't. But pretty good stuff right there. I usually keep it about 35 degrees or something just to keep stuff cool, and we're good to go. And then next is our trusted Grizzly cooler. Now we've had this thing for a long time. You've probably seen a lot of Dirt Nation videos. You've seen me yeehaw it out of the truck multiple times, which is why it's got damage here. It's got a hole on the bottom because I ran it over and stabbed it with the leaf spring. But this thing's a champ and it still works just fine. So we always had this one loaded up with a bunch of drinks, waters, Gatorades, you know, trail sodas, you know, whatever fresh beverages that we want. So I make sure this thing is well stocked with plenty of ice, and because it is a, you know, a really well insulated cooler, it'll keep that stuff cool with the ice, you know, continuing to still be ice even after a couple days. So good combo between both. Yes, they take up a ton of space, but the good thing is they are flat. So both of them are evenly flat. So afterwards we can go ahead and, you know, stack some stuff on the top and do some ratchet strap action. Getting close to the end here. Now this honking piece of Tupperware carries a lot of our camping equipment. I also keep food inside here. So let's say it's just like regular snacks, chips, bread, you know, whatever it may be. Keep that stuff inside here, as well as a bunch of like generic camping items because we are living out of our vehicle. Now with the camping stuff, I'll also mention that, you know, I had a, you know, obviously a camping tent with me. I had a sleeping bag, and then I had like an air mattress that was like a 5-inch memory foam one. Terrific mattress. I fucking loved it. It's big, but it works great, especially if you're going to sleep on the ground for multiple days. That thing came in clutch. So I won't show those in that video, but hey, you're going to have a tent. You're going to be sleeping in that, and you're also, you know, there's other things that are going to go with having to camp, right? But inside this, I mean, I'll just show a couple things. You know, I keep propane inside here. You know, we have grilling utensils because we did bring a grill. We have some cups. We have, you know, a little pan. We have some baby wipes, paper towels, and then there's also like toilet paper. And then we have, you know, a pump for our hell is it, for our mattress. We got some Agent Orange. No, sorry, Fast Orange. Agent Orange would be terrible for your hands. Some Fast Orange, because this stuff cleans up your hands really good. We usually keep soap in here. Random stuff. I have a light, toilet paper, you know, forks and spoons. You know, you guys are getting the message, right? See, there it is. We still got some leftover chips in there. You know, some sour gummies, because why not, right? So it's usually just like random generic items that you're gonna need for camping. Super important. Ah, yes, the hammock. You know, you can't go home. You can't miss a trail without your hammock. So next is how you're gonna feed yourself. So we talked about, you know, refrigerators, ice chests, all of that stuff. Not everyone's gonna be able to carry 2 ice chests. Most of us, most of the time, will probably only carry 1 for the sake of our sanity and not having to keep track of so much stuff. If that's the case, right, you're gonna have to supplement with some items. So probably water and food. You can't always carry a ton of meat and carry a bunch of other, you know, refrigerated food. So you're gonna have to figure out some different options. So first things first, we have some, these are like, I wanna say a gallon, maybe a gallon and a half each of water. So these are cans from Daystar. So these are pretty cool. You know, you put some fresh water in there, we can use it for generic stuff. So let's say we have to heat up some water for, you know, our food items, or we just need water to rinse off our hands or to rinse off our faces, you know, to clean up real quick. This is really good. In an emergency, we can drink this, although I did not, you know, I wouldn't recommend drinking directly from these, but you can in an emergency if, you know, if push comes to shove, you can definitely drink from them. But you guys know what I'm saying. Put that back together. So cool thing is these clip together, and then there is a mounting system for these, but I don't have the mounting system set up on here, so I just carried them in the bed of the truck. Next, food wise, so you guys are familiar with MREs, meal ready to eat. Is that what they're called? MREs, right? Military food. It's usually like packaged in a way to where it'll last for decades or a very long time. This is a similar idea. This is specifically for, you know, camping, or, you know, you preppers out there, those of you that want to keep food for a long time, just in case. Just in case, it says it on there. This is a good option for that. So these are emergency meals. These are from Mountain House. Pick these up from Costco, and these have I think, what is it, 14 servings, 28 servings, although it's only 14 bags, so it doesn't end up being, it says 28 servings. It's not 28 servings, especially if you're big like me. 1 pouch is 1 serving, although it says 2 servings, but that's besides the point. So you guys can take a look right here if you want to screenshot and take a look. So this has a bunch of different cool options on there. You know, has breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and these are freeze dried, so they'll last a long time. So let's take a look at one of them right here. So this one will be best by April of 2053. It's gonna last longer than I am, but like this one right here, beef stroganoff with noodles. So these are actually pretty cool because the instructions are fairly straightforward. You know, let's see, you got to add 1 2/3 cups of hot boiling water. You add it inside, you mix it around, you let it sit for a few minutes, and then you open it up, you know, mix it up again, and then now you have a meal ready to go. And there's a bunch of different ones in here. Probably already ate half of them, but you know, we got beef stroganoff, we got lasagna, we got breakfast, you got granola, you got eggs and bacon. That's more granola. So there's a lot of really good options in here. Eggs and bacon. What else? We got more lasagna. All good stuff. So I would recommend picking up some of these. It's probably a good idea to have these inside your vehicle anyways, just in case you are out on a trail, you get stranded, something happens. You at least have some food to eat and something that won't go bad like right away or go bad after a few months. This is going to last for, you know, freaking 20, 30 years. So you can't beat that. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for this video. I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover. I hope you guys learned some good things on this video. It's not a perfect list of things to carry, but it is what I carry. It's what works for me so far. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any suggestions, maybe some feedback, hey, this are the items that I carry. Hey, I really like how you carry this. Hey, you might carry a little bit too much of this. Maybe try this instead of this. whatever it may be. Let's talk in the comments below. I always love to learn new things, and I always love to speak with you guys and get feedback and all of that. But that's going to be it for this video. That is a checklist and a breakdown of the items that you want to bring if you're going on a extended rock crawling trip. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Make subscribe, channel, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Patreon. You also hit for shirts, hats, hoodies, and all those goodies. DirtnationOffroad, BigCartel.com. Until next time, thank you guys. Let's get it.